Hello everyone, I am Griffin and we are back with another reaction video. We are reacting to Isaac Butterfield once again. Like I said before, I love this man. This bearded bastard is wonderful. Alright, this one is We Need Help. So let's see what he has to say.
Of living crisis. You may have heard of it.
More than 50,000 Victorians are needing a free weekly grocery shop to feed their families. Food donations are surging as the cost of living crisis worsens.
We hear it night after night. The cost of living is rising and families are paying the price.
The cost of living crisis is the brand new media cry. You know how at the start of the news for a couple of months they have one thing they always seem to talk about before they get on to the next subject?
It really is amazing, even in Australia. Here as well in America. The cost of living has gone, in the past 30 years, has gone up at an alarming, dramatic rate. I mean, a house back in like, I think it was like the 70s or 80s, the median yearly income was around, I think, 40,000 a year, and like just the cost of a house, I believe, was I think it was $80,000 to $90,000, so about two and a half times the cost of the average income of the American household, which was fine. People at that time were able to put down a certain amount of money and able to afford their place on just one person's income. Nowadays, the average income has gone up to only, I think it was like 59,000 for average, and the cost of houses is like 5 to 10 times that of the average income, which is astronomically fucking stupid. Like the cost of everything, gas, houses, food, cars, you know, everything has gone up so much, and yet the income of people hasn't kept up with it, which is sad, because if they keep saying that if we increase people's income everything will get expensive. Have you seen that everything is still getting expensive even though our income hasn't really increased at all? It's like they're trying to perpetually keep us poor.
Well, the cost of living crisis is a great way to sell news, and they bloody love it.
The cost of living
report. The rising cost of living.
Cost of living crisis.
The cost of living.
But this isn't the first time. The news and the media have been doing this for many, many years. In 2003, it was weapons of mass destruction. That's all anyone talked about. In 2009, it was swine flu. Occupy Wall Street came after that. Later down the line was Black Lives Matter, and then along came a certain illness. The media love grabbing onto something to terrify us, and then they just refuse to let go. It's the lead story, and if it bleeds, it leads. And people are bleeding right now. They are really struggling. If you don't live in Australia right now, you may not have any idea what I'm talking about, but a lot of Australians, for lack of a better term, are right now fucked. Inflation is going through the roof. Things that were quite affordable to every single person not too long ago, like a bag of chips, crisps, whatever you want to fucking call them, they're $6, $6.50 now. That's ridiculous. Everything's going up in price. People's grocery bills are going absolutely fucking sky high, ladies and gentlemen. And you know what's not going sky high? People's fucking wages. Everything costs more, but no one's getting paid anymore. But why is this happening? That's the question. Well, let's have a quick look as to who to blame. It's not Ukraine and fucking Russia. Unless you live in Europe and you're trying to buy gas, that doesn't affect anyone, except for the Ukrainians and Russians obviously. The issue of who to blame for everything costing more and the crisis that is the rising cost of living is a very, very complicated issue. If you want a more detailed response to it, go and watch Friendly Geordie's video on it. It's much more intelligent. He knows what he's talking about.
Cost of living. We all notice it. We all complain about it, especially as small talk at shithouse parties. So, let's give you some memo for the next round, eh?
Anyway, go and watch Friendly Geordie, that cuck. I'm joking. I had coffee with him on the weekend. He's a very nice man. You see, the issue lies in this. Our government and governments all over the world, I'm looking at you, America, love spending money that isn't real. During COVID, the Australian government gave out a shit ton of free money to people to keep them at home and cover their wages, which almost cost $100 billion fucking dollars. Made up money that was just given to people. And it was nice at the time. We've learned a lot more about that illness now and realised that we definitely didn't need to do that. But anyway, $100 billion, gone, disappeared. So what do we do? What do we do when we have that debt, particularly when it doesn't exist? Well, someone's got to pay it back, and why don't the people of Australia pay it back, those filthy fucking scum? I could also go into detail about all the companies that profited throughout that time, like big companies like Woolworths and Coles and the big supermarket chains. They made a lot of money. There's other companies that basically send all their profits overseas. So we were making fake money.
I can't say that I understand a lot of this stuff, but it is funny. We see that the government, they spend all this money that they don't have, and when it's time to pay it back, they try and make their own citizens pay it back when they themselves have spent the money. It's like a owner of a company spending money on something frivolous, money that he doesn't have, and then he goes around just going to everyone else and saying, hey, you got to help pay this back because I'm the dumbass that spent it. I'm going to have you guys pay it back instead of me. It's fucking stupid. And then I've heard like they're trying to print more money or whatever. I'm not sure if it's actually true. Honestly, I feel like I'm just talking out of my ass at this point. But it just sucks. The cost of living and everything. It's horrible. I mean, right now at my full-time job, I'm making $20 an hour. I'm working 40 hours a week, and my apartment I'm paying $839 a month, and I'm plus everything else I have to pay for. I'm basically living paycheck to paycheck, making $20 an hour, and that's just fucking sad. It's horrible.
I mean, it was going into companies that was sending it overseas, fake money overseas. It's all fucked is what it is. And now the Australian government has a fuckload of debt. In March 2020, the Australian government had $580 billion of debt. And as of now, it's around $900 billion. Soon it will be over $1 trillion and thus devaluing our dollar. Meaning basically, back in the day, if you had $4 dues, you could buy a packet of chips, and now you need $6.5 dues to buy a packet of chips. And eventually, over time, everything's sky high, everything's fucked, and you need a fucking wheelbarrow to buy a loaf of bread. So how do you stop inflation? Well, you stop people spending, and a great way to stop people spending is to make everyone fucking poor. So what does Australia do? In walks a man called Philip Lowe. Oh, sorry, that's actually not his middle name. But he is the Lord Voldemort of Australia right now. This prick decides to continually put up the cash rate here in Australia, which affects everyone's interest rates, which is basically the exact same as putting on a strap-on and fucking anyone in front of you. Yeah, Dirty Phil's decided in his infinite wisdom to punish absolutely everyone, including everyday Australians. Well, not everyone, he doesn't punish the banks, they're making massive profits, by basically taking all the money away from them because they have to pay more in interest rates. Now, if you don't know what the cash rate is, it's the interest rate that banks pay to each other, right? Now, if you put that up, it means the banks have to pay more, they lose more money, etc., etc., so they put up their own interest rates, which basically rapes everybody. And it wasn't just one interest rate hike, it was month after month after month after month. It kept going up. There were people who went from paying $1,200 a month, paying off their house, to $3,000 a month. meaning people had to come up with an extra $500 out of their ass, which is particularly difficult when chips are $6.50. On top of this, the Philip Lowe told people in 2021 that the official cash rate would remain at historic lows until at least 2024. The last time I checked, yeah, fuck, we're not at 2024 and everything's, once again, fucked. And here we are, right now. The Reserve Bank governor told everyone to basically borrow more. It's not going up, you don't have to pay more. So people did that, and now they're absolutely screwed.
I'm currently paying $670 a week. My rent is gonna go up to $850 per week.
It should not be. It shouldn't be allowed for people, for landlords and all that stuff to hike up people's rent that fucking much. I mean, I can't complain about mine. When I first moved into this one bedroom that I'm in, it was $7.99 a month, and it only went up to $8.39. So it went up $40. You know, not much. But for other people, for people who have pay rent on houses or other apartments, they like $100 to $500 increase on their rent. That that is bullshit, honestly. Especially on the higher end, that should not be allowed for people to hike up rent that fucking much. I mean, people are barely getting by on just what they're paying now, and they're expected to just magically pull more money out of their ass. I always thought that when it comes to the living expenses, we should not have gotten to the point where more than one person needed to work just to afford a place to live. Because nowadays, just to afford a house, like 2, 3, 4, 5 people in the household need to work just to afford that one house, which I find complete and utter bullshit. We should not have gotten to the point where it has gotten this bad for people to afford just a roof over their head. And there are people who can't really afford that, and they live out in their car, or they live out in a tent, or they're couch hopping. It's just horrible to see.
Our rent is $680 a week. It's going up to $780.
Now this affects a lot of people, obviously, homeowners, renters, families, everyone, professionals, whatever. It affects everyone. And I've seen a lot of people giving a lot of flack, a lot of hate towards landlords. And I think a lot of it is unjust.
I don't even know what's happening with these rental prices in Sydney right now.
The Australian rental market is in crisis.
I see this on TikTok, mainly from like 22-year-olds straight out of fucking uni, but they're angry that their landlords are putting up rent. But here's the question. If your mortgage repayments went from $1,200 to $3,000 a month and you were a landlord, what would you do? You would have to fucking put your rent up. I know it's not nice, but don't blame them, all right? Unless they've already owned the house, then they're just price gouging. Anyway, at the same time, grocery bills are going up, all right? Childcare's going up. Everything's going up. Petrol's more expensive. Everything is more expensive. Some people have even ended their own lives. There was a gentleman in Sydney, I believe, blew up his house because he couldn't deal with the interest rate rises. He was at a loss and decided to kill himself because of this shit. This is real. Dan Andrews decided to cancel the Commonwealth Games because he gave everyone too much cash back in fucking sick times. Meanwhile, banks, big business, corporations are making massive profits. And I'm not against profits. I just think when everyone else is fucking dying in the streets, maybe don't put your fucking chips to $6.50. Some people's wages are going up, but that's middle class people. Lower class people, which obviously most of the time I spit on, their wages aren't increasing. And the likelihood of low to middle income earners ever owning a house in this country is it's just not gonna fucking happen. And you know what really would blow your mind right now if you're an Australian? Go and have a look at the cost of a house in places like the USA. It will fucking do your head in. Because here in Australia right now, well, maybe we could do this. We could compare a $1 million house in Australia to a $1 million house in America. Look at the difference. That's what we're paying for here. And that is an entry-level price here in Australia, $1 million. If you want to live in Sydney and you want to pay under $1 million for a house, well, you're not going to do it. It's not going to fucking happen, all right? You may as well live in a shed. Banks are getting rich.
Yeah, like my mom was able to help my brother find a house that was about, I think, $180,000 to $200,000, and I don't know what his mortgage is. I don't know what he put down on it, but I found that to comfortably, and I said comfortably, afford a house that is. Oh, hang on, my pizza's here. All right, as I was saying, I found out that to comfortably afford a house that's around $200,000, you would have to make $100,000 a year to comfortably afford it. And that's just a $200,000 home. Think of how much you'd have to make to afford anything more expensive than that. And my brother's house is not really that big. It sucks. Trying to afford a home. It's just horrible.
Richer, corporations are getting richer, the government's fucking everybody, and what are we doing? Just sitting there scrolling through TikTok, looking at ass and titties, which is fun, but I mean, what do we do? Other than me just fucking making this video with the shits, what do we do? People will die from this. They really will. They will give up. People can't live like this. People are under so much pressure every single day.
Oh yeah, and my brother doesn't make that much. He is literally struggling every day just to afford the place he lives in. And he even has a roommate. And he's still struggling. He barely has money to spend on himself. If he has any at all to spend on himself. So he can't really do anything fun. So that really sucks.
That they will eventually crumble. There's only so much people can take. It's an absolutely horrible concept that people would rather be dead than face these interest rate hikes. The same thing happened with robo-debt here in Australia. Basically, Centrelink, which gives money to people who don't have a job here in Australia, they decided in their infinite wisdom through some computer program to go out and say, hey, you over there, dull bludger, you fucking haven't worked in 30 years, you owe us $1,800, you owe us fucking 10 grand. People killed themselves. The same thing will happen here. And yet, the big banks here in Australia, the ones we are paying all this money to, $17.1 billion in the first halves of 2022, up 19% compared to the first 6 months of 2021. Absolute. Ladies and gentlemen, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Be a good motherfucker. Peace in the Middle East. Me dick stinks. Do love well.
All right. Well, that was that video. Cost of living sucks. All of us average people are struggling every single day just to survive to the next day, to the next paycheck. Well, I hope you all enjoyed the video. I do have a streaming channel over on Twitch. Link to that will be in the description below. I do have other social medias like TikTok and Twitter. I do also have a Discord. Links to everything will be in the description below. If there are any other videos you'd like to see me react to, please make sure to comment them down below and I'll get to them as soon as I can. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.